Welcome to the Observeday podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, where every awareness day inspires meaningful conversations. This November, we are observing National Diabetes Month, a time to reflect on how our daily habits, hormones, and food choices shape our long term health. Our guest today, Hannah Bethman, is a gut and hormone health coach with a master's degree in human nutrition. After battling gastritis, fatigue, migraines, and hormonal chaos herself, she discovered how food and lifestyle could completely transform her well-being. Now, she helps women decode their symptoms, balance their hormones, and restore their energy naturally without restriction or confusion. In today's conversation, we'll connect the dots between blood sugar, hormones, and gut health and explore how women can take small, sustainable steps to protect their bodies, not just from diabetes, but from the burnout that precedes it. Welcome to the podcast, Hannah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hannah, your journey began with years of unexplained symptoms, fatigue, migraines, gut issues.
Yes.
And can you take us back to that time? How did that experience shape your understanding of blood sugar balance and its ripple effects on overall health?
Yeah, so my kind of health problems really began when I was 5 years old, pretty young. I suffered from pretty severe gastrointestinal issues on a daily basis. So I had gastritis, which is just it's inflammation of the stomach, and it can cause a lot of stomach pain, stomach like a unique burning feeling in the stomach, nausea, reflux. Everything that I ate would be regurgitated hours later. So it's like my stomach just couldn't seem to digest food very well, if at all. And so, that caused a lot of pain and just irritation for really most of my life. And my parents, they tried to feed me a fairly healthy diet. I mean, healthy for America, I guess. And so, it was kind of off and on that I had these issues. But still, pretty much every day I would deal with something. And so, to make a long story short, we didn't really have any answers. But when I was 15, almost 16, I ended up discovering how diet could play a massive role in illness. And it's kind of a long story, of how I came to discover that. But essentially, I started to think about, the epidemic, that really is the word for it, of chronic illness in the Western world and now all throughout the world of heart disease, diabetes, and even a lot of issues that we take for granted nowadays that are
Yeah.
becoming more common in young people, IBS, PCOS, the list goes on and on. And I just came to believe strongly that these issues truly are not normal, that they, or I came to believe that they're a result of modern day diets and lifestyles that are not supportive of our bodies. And so I really just jumped all in. I completely overhauled my diet. And within a few weeks of doing that, I had just about a complete reversal of my GI issues. So needless to say, I was pretty amazed by that. And I just kind of continued to, learn more and more about nutrition. Years later, I went on to get my degree in nutrition. But my journey didn't end there. I had, a lot of obstacles and kind of setbacks along the way, both like with the mental side of things. I had a very all or nothing mindset to diet, so that kind of would set me back. And then I also struggled with hormonal issues for years, like the migraines, fatigue, irregular periods. And I couldn't figure out why I was able to help myself with the GI issues, but not with the hormone piece. I didn't understand what
Yeah.
I was missing. But again, to make a long story short with that, I ended up realizing that there were just some really simple shifts that I had to make in my diet and lifestyle. And that when I did that, things like making sure I was getting enough of certain nutrients, eating more, and blood sugar balance for me was a big piece. Not in terms of diabetes necessarily, but we can talk about that. The difference between the two later, but just in terms of how stable my blood sugar was throughout the day. And I really, once I made these shifts, I had a huge improvement in my hormone issues as well. And so now today I'm just very passionate about, sharing information about all these issues and helping women the best I can with these issues.
Wow. November is it's National Diabetes Month, and we often hear about blood sugar only in the context of diabetes. Why do you believe women, even those without diabetes, need to understand how their blood sugar works?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so and yeah, 'cause to kind of give a background, at least in America, 1 in 5 women suffer from either PCOS or endometriosis. And PCOS in particular is really one of the root causes is blood sugar imbalance and insulin resistance. And then, that's amongst, younger women. Then we get, into older populations and we see pre-diabetes has become so common in the Western world. I mean, even amongst children now, they say it's almost 1 in 3, which is really quite terrifying. And then, another significant chunk have diabetes. So, so blood sugar balance, what I mean by that is so kind of looking into the science of it, we have, when we eat a meal that contains carbohydrates, our blood sugar is going to rise. I mean, it's always steady, throughout the day. It's meant to be at a certain level. And then we eat a meal and it's meant to gently rise and then kind of gently fall back down over several hours. It's back to that baseline. So we don't want it too high or too low. Otherwise, our body literally could not function. We would die. And so when we get insulin resistance, that is where well, so sorry, backing up. So when we eat that meal containing carbs, our pancreas is supposed to produce insulin, which kind of helps shuttle that glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cells where it can be used for energy, for storage, whatever the cell needs. And so we get this insulin resistance where the body's pumping out all this insulin in response to glucose. And then for different reasons, which we can talk about, the cells are not responding properly. So it's insulin resistance. And so that's really kind of at the heart of a lot of these issues. PCOS, the other things I mentioned, of course,
Yeah,
diabetes, prediabetes. Um, and yeah, so that, so insulin resistance is ultimately can be, there's so many factors that can contribute to our sensitivity with food, lifestyle related. And of course, I'd be happy to get into, the weeds with that if you'd like.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for explaining that. You talk a lot about relationship between hormones and the gut, right? Can you explain how blood sugar fluctuations can throw hormones off balance and contribute to PMS, mood swings, or energy crashes in depth? In a little bit more detail.
Yeah. So essentially, so when we have, that stable blood sugar throughout the day, everything just functions, best in the body. So our hormones are very sensitive to blood sugar and, and so when that balance is thrown off, that creates, inflammation in the body and it's considered to be a stressor. And so our hormones are very responsive to stress, in all different forms. And so a lot of women, they'll struggle with, low blood sugar issues from things like not eating enough, sometimes certain nutrient deficiencies. So, like, we need magnesium and chromium in order for that. Again, the glucose and the insulin, sense for us to be insulin sensitive, for everything to work properly. And so when that, ultimately, what I see with a lot of women, and I think I experienced this myself, is, again, when certain parts of our diet and lifestyle aren't ideal, we can have too many fluctuations throughout the day. So we can have, a meal in which our blood glucose goes up a little too high, like higher than it should. And then I like the phrase, what goes up must come down. So, the higher our blood glucose goes, it's going to drop down faster and more severely than it should. And so when we get, low blood glucose, that's when we can get a lot of the symptoms like fatigue and kind of like a feeling of brain fog, difficulty concentrating, very common hormonal symptoms that a lot of women experience. And so this is, again, what I dealt with for a long time with the migraines, where I would just get these fluctuations throughout the day that just were not optimal for my body. And then, compound this with, years and years and aging and with people who are pre-diabetic. or diabetic, their blood sugar will jump even higher to the point where it actually becomes dangerous. And, this is where with actual diabetes, you can get symptoms like severe weight fluctuations and, being thirsty all the time, weight loss resistance, so there's all sorts of things. So, yeah, the blood sugar, it is really, I have come to kind of label it as one of the key foundational pillars of health for when you're trying to resolve any kind of health problem, really, no matter what it is. But especially, of course, diabetes and the hormone issues.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for that explanation, Hannah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of conversation about cutting carbs or sugar completely. From your experience, what's the danger of
Mm,
extreme restriction?
mm. Yeah, so definitely at the heart of any conversation with blood sugar is of course carbs. And on one hand, so there's kind of two sides of this, and I think there's the middle ground here. On one hand, I do strongly believe that at least in the Western world, we eat far too many carbs and not and also low quality carbs. So what I mean by that is, for most of human history, humans just did not have access or to such high quantities of carbs, out at least maybe in certain civilizations, sure they
Yeah.
did, but like hunter gatherer groups, they had carbs, they had tubers, sometimes even grains and legumes, depending on the tribe, but they just did not have the sheer quantity that we have today. Just, nowadays you just go in a supermarket and it's just nothing but, white bread, pasta, soda.
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observeday newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Crackers, cookies, muffins, bagels, cereal. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And I mean, I see kids these days, I look at I used to be a substitute teacher and I look at their lunch boxes and it's like nothing but refined carbs that are, again, can spike our blood glucose and are also tend to be very low in key nutrients like potassium, magnesium, fiber, things that are higher in more whole food carbs. So I do think that it's wise for anyone with blood sugar issues to sometimes lower the quantity, but then the question is how much. And I think so. To answer your question, some people kind of go too far where they'll jump straight into they'll go from a standard American diet, or lots of ultra processed food, and they'll just jump straight into ketosis, the keto
Yeah.
diet. And they'll just go very heavy with, cheese and, and all these like low carb foods, some of which are quite processed themselves, ironically. And it doesn't, always necessarily get to the root cause, and it can also be very stressful on the body. I see a lot of women who they'll jump into like keto and they'll end up under eating because they're focused so much on the carbs and they're kind of missing all these other pieces. So again, they're not getting enough fiber, they're not getting enough magnesium, potassium, certain vitamins that are needed, for blood sugar balance and insulin sensitivity. Um, and they just sort of sometimes end up stressing themselves out with the diet, both mentally and physically. And so sometimes it's just not needed. There are certainly studies that can show that, and anecdotes of people who have done a very low carb diet, and it did help them. So I'm not completely against the idea, but I just don't think that that's the right starting point. For your average person who's just trying to get the ball rolling with their health.
Yeah, 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 it makes sense. So what would be a healthier, more sustainable approach?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
What is a healthier, more sustainable approach?
I'm sorry, a healthy, what was that?
Okay, my question is, what is a healthier, more sustainable approach? We just talked about how extreme restriction is not ideal, it's
Ah,
not recommended. So what's a healthier, more sustainable approach?
yes. Okay, yes. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no
So,
problem.
I mean, I would say, And I've done this. I've worked with women, who they didn't necessarily have diabetes. They were younger, but they did have, PCOS, heavy periods, things that are very responsive to blood sugar. And oftentimes I'll start them out with we will reduce the carbs a little bit. When I say that, they're still getting plenty of carbs with the meal. So instead of, relying on, like I said, the breads, the pasta, the crackers, the sugar, we'll replace them with healthier whole food carbs that are nutrient dense. So things like root veggies, sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, beans are awesome if someone's able to tolerate them, in terms of digestion. Because beans are very high in fiber and potassium and just very, blood sugar friendly for most people. So just eating more of that. Of course, whole fruits in moderation are great. Veggies do offer some carbs as well. And yeah, so just really switching to, I think the quality is a great first step. Just ditching, the all the ultra processed refined carbs that we eat today, and then at the same time, balancing those healthy whole food carbs with a good amount of healthy fats and protein as well. Things like avocados, fatty fish. It has omega 3s, very anti-inflammatory. Um, even like chicken and grass-fed beef, all foods that are going to be nourishing to the body and help promote more stable blood sugar throughout the day rather than those steep spikes and drops after.
Yeah, well, thank you for the recommendation of some of those food you mentioned. For a woman listening today
Yeah.
who feels constantly tired or hungry. By hungry, I mean hungry with an H, right? What are the three small habits that she could
Mm,
start this week to support better blood sugar
hmm
balance and overall hormone harmony?
yeah. Great question. I always like to tell people if you're overwhelmed and you're like, I don't know where to start, just start with your morning routine. And so with the diet piece, I see a lot of people eating like for breakfast, it's like a bagel with cream cheese or cereal and milk, just kind of like, again, that just what I described earlier. And so instead, just starting with breakfast and really center it around satiating whole foods that are going to support blood sugar balance. So something like, I mean, if someone's on the go, a smoothie can be great. But ideally, if someone has a little bit of time or they can meal prep this, doing some kind of like breakfast bowl or breakfast hash is great with, something like a protein like ground turkey. Even, grass fed beef, chicken, sausage. And then, adding in your healthy carbs like, sweet potatoes, winter squash is another great one I forgot to mention. And then whatever veggies work for you, peppers, onions, leafy greens are great, broccoli. And people have different tolerance levels for different, foods, of course. So whatever works for someone's unique body, of course. And then, adding in some healthy fats if need be, olive oil, avocados, even a little bit of ghee is great. And so just really, and then this is something that can be meal prepped, a day in advance, and then just you can reheat it. So just starting with that, having a really satiating, nutrient dense breakfast that is going to again give you that stable blood sugar, stable energy throughout the day. And then, there's so many lifestyle pieces too. So back to the morning routine, I love recommending it's so simple, that it's often overlooked, but it's getting more natural sunlight during the day, especially the morning without sunglasses, ideally, and even letting some bare skin get some morning sunlight. There's so much research now on how the sun and our circadian rhythm affects our blood sugar as well.
Yeah,
So studies show that when people get more natural sunlight during the day and less artificial light at night, specifically from screens and LED light bulbs, which are ubiquitous now in the modern world, that they have better insulin sensitivity, better blood sugar balance. So, just getting out in the morning for even just like I mean, people just, I always say do what you can, ideally 20 to 30 minutes, but if all you can get in is like 5 to 10 minutes, that it's better than nothing.
Yeah,
And it could be paired with even going for like a simple walk, which is also studies show is great for blood sugar. So
yeah,
there's a lot of stacking that we can do. It doesn't. We can kind of the phrase like kill two birds with one stone, so to speak.
yeah. Wow. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Hannah, for those recommendations. I did prepare a lightning round. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Coffee or herbal tea? What's your go-to morning ritual for stable energy? Do you take coffee or herbal tea? That's HERBAL T. Herbs.
Herbs.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and is that just herbs? Are you asking in terms of, like,
No,
diabetes
no,
or
it's
more
yeah, no,
hormones
no,
or
no,
both?
no, no. It's just a lightning round, just to get to know you. Like, what do you prefer to start your day with? Coffee or herbal tea? With
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I
no, no
understood.
problem, no problem, no
Yes.
problem.
So yeah. So, yeah, I am definitely a herbal tea person. Yeah,
uh,
coffee is yeah, and coffee, I do believe can be supportive. I believe in Ethiopia, it's been consumed for a long time. They'll do coffee ceremonies. I think, for your average person today who's really stressed out, has high cortisol, is not sleeping well, ironically, I see sometimes coffee can be an overstimulator. People with heart palpitations, given so sometimes I do think that it's helpful to kind of lean back on that for a while and lean more on herbal teas like rooibos, mint, different things like that. But
yeah,
some people, if someone does want to consume coffee, I think having it with a meal, I've seen make a huge difference for my clients versus having it on an empty stomach or beforehand. But yeah, for me personally, I just like herbal tea.
okay.
But I would say that meat in general is bad for you and that we should go vegan. I
No,
know
no, I'm not
that's
talking
very
about meat. I'm not talking
controversial.
about meat. I'm not talking about meat. I said MYTH. If you could debunk uh
Oh,
one nutrition
well,
MYTH.
yeah. No, sorry, I did hear that. That is the myth. I believe that
Okay,
meat
okay.
is
I
bad
just
for
want
you.
I
It just
thought you
sounds
misinterpreted
yeah.
it. Okay, okay. You can proceed with your answer. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
you
it
you
sounds so
got the question
similar.
clearly.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
no, but that is, I believe, a huge myth today is ironically that meat is just bad for you, period, that we all need to just, ditch it. And it's just, it's such a deep rabbit hole to go down. I can't even get into all the details. But,
Uh,
meat is just definitely something that's been consumed for literally since the dawn of humanity. And a lot of the studies, supposedly showing that it's bad. There's a lot of issues with them. Again, it's too much detail to go into, but,
yeah, of
meat, I
course.
have found time and time again for myself and other people that it's just one of the best things for helping with energy and vitality. And again, amongst other things, is of course, but yeah, I would just say that, yeah, people certainly plants are awesome, but people don't need to go, plant based in order to improve their health.
What is a wellness habit you swear by, even on your most like your busiest day?
Great question. Mm, I would say definitely, I mean, this is kind of funny, but I don't know if this would totally count, but definitely like getting a good night's sleep. But taking steps to get that good sleep. So I just, find time and time again when I sleep well, it just completely clears my mind. It just opens the door to so many other possibilities during the day. And so I would say, to help with that at night, just having a simple routine for about 1 hour. I personally love listening to calming music. There's so many things on YouTube today. It just really helps my mind calm down after I've been thinking all day and really helps me then get good sleep, which then helps me, do so much better and feel better the next day. So yeah, I'd say like that having a simple nightly routine, and it doesn't have to be music. If someone prefers to do deep breathing or take a bath, there's so many things. Read a book that can help calm us down. But yeah, something like that.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for that. And the last question is fill in the blank. Feeling balanced means dash.
Mm, see. I'd say feeling balanced means that sorry. It's hard to, I'm thinking of, wait, does that have to be one word or like a phrase?
Surprise me.
Okay. I say feeling balanced on a day to day basis means feeling deeply in tune with your body and its sensations and feeling grounded. So a sense of,
Okay, feeling balanced means feeling deeply grounded and in tune with your body. Okay.
yes,
Okay. Perfect. Ooh. Thank you so much, Hannah.
you're welcome.
Where can listeners learn more about the work you do and also connect with you?
Yeah, so they can book a free chat with me at my website www.hannahbwellness.com. They can go to my services page, click on the first link that they see there, and they can book a free chat with me just to discuss, what their main health concerns are, what they've already tried, and what it would look like to work with me and how nutrition and lifestyle services might help them.
Wow. Thank you so much. You shared with us so much health wisdom. And I will put the link you mentioned in the description so that listeners can click and go directly to the site. Thank you. It's been an absolute delight chatting and listening to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wisdom.
That's it for today's episode of the Observeday podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.